Hello and welcome to Global Lens. Over the next 30 minutes, we put the spotlight on the top stories from around the world. I'm Parikshit Luthra. These are the top global headlines we're tracking. India's top trade negotiator extends his stay in Washington as talks enter the final phase to seal an interim deal. Sources say the stalemate continues over agriculture and dairy. US Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent says a deal with India is very close. US Senate holds a marathon session as Republicans struggle to gather enough votes to pass President Trump's sweeping budget bill. The legislation will add over $3 trillion to US debt, even as it cuts healthcare and social security benefits. Elon Musk and President Donald Trump resume sparring on social media. Musk vows to unseat lawmakers who vote for Trump's budget bill and call for the formation of a new political party. Trump threatens to cut subsidies to Musk's companies and taunts him to go back to South Africa. Musk dares Trump on subsidies, saying, "Cut it all." Let's go straight to the market action. Stocks on Wall Street retreat a day after the S&P 500 and Nasdaq ended the first half of 2025 at record closing highs. Shares of Tesla are down after Elon Musk and President Trump sparred over the one big beautiful bill and Trump threatened subsidy cuts. Tesla's slump is dragging down the American market. Before we talk about the contentious bill, here's how the Asian markets closed today. Indian benchmark indices ended with marginal gains after a range-bound session. Nifty held on to the 25,500 mark. Japan's Nikkei fell by more than 1%, while Hong Kong's Hang Seng also slumped. However, China's Shanghai Composite and South Korea's Kospi gained about 0.5% each. Stocks in Europe edged lower. Investors are keeping a close watch on the progress of US President Donald Trump's one big beautiful bill that will overhaul the country's tax, healthcare and energy policy. The US Senate is holding a marathon vote on the bill. Trump wants the bill passed before 4th of July, Independence Day holiday. The bill is expected to add an estimated $3.3 trillion to the national debt over the next decade. The Senate version also called for a $5 trillion increase in the federal debt ceiling, which is $1 trillion more than the House version proposed. Banks and several economists are at odds on the impact of the bill. While the debt load is a concern for many, some say the bill could boost the economy. In a note earlier this month, Morgan Stanley said the bill's pro-growth tax cuts may benefit businesses and individuals. To take a closer look at what the bill will mean for the US economy and what the Trump-Musk feud will mean for the Wall Street, I'm now joined by Dennis Dick of Stock Trader Network. Dennis, thank you very much for joining us. So it seems to be an all-out war between Elon Musk and Donald Trump again, and Trump now saying that Musk could lose a lot more than the EV mandate and subsidies. Do you expect a further impact on the Tesla stock in the days to come?
Yeah, the drama here unfolding is really unprecedented from a CEO. Like, usually CEOs stay relatively neutral in their political stance because they don't want to cut off certain customer base. So obviously, we didn't see this with Elon Musk basically completely supporting the Republican Party, and at that time cutting off a lot of Democratic buyers potentially, and even international buyers. But we saw, this fallout here at the beginning of June where Musk started up a tweet storm. He's got Twitter, he's got The Voice, and he started up a tweet storm at the beginning of June, and the fallout started to happen. Then they kind of kissed and made up almost, like the family feud was over, and Tesla stock rallied after that. Well, yesterday, the family feud starts again. With Musk's tweet talking about, and I can just read the tweet, it's amazing, is obvious with the insane spending of this bill, which increases the debt ceiling by a record $5 trillion, that we live in a one-party country, the Porky Pig Party. Time for a new political party that actually cares about the people. I mean, that is unbelievable for the CEO of a public company to attack, a president like that. And the president has responded this morning, and that's why you're seeing the weakness in Tesla. With the stock at one time down 7%, it's rebounded from those lows down only 4.5% right now. But Musk needs Trump. Trump does not need Musk. And this is what, and I'm a Tesla shareholder, and it's somewhat concerning because obviously, the EV credits are one thing, but you think about full self-drive and all the other things that are going to have regulatory hurdles to get over. If Trump is not on board with Elon Musk, all those regulatory hurdles become a lot more difficult. So there's a lot to lose here for Elon Musk. And if I was him, I'd back off on some of this, political commentary on Twitter, but he just can't do it. He just seemingly just can't keep quiet.
Yeah. Trump has also threatened cutting off some of those EV subsidies. If that were to happen, how does Elon Musk and Tesla get impacted, considering he's just taking off on his autonomous vehicle journey?
I mean, it's not good, but this was expected. So, we knew in the bill that they were going to bring back or eliminate the EV credit. So he knew this was coming, even when he was supporting, which was surprising to a lot of people that he, jumped on board with the Republicans, because you knew that Trump was probably going to get rid of these EV credits. So I think Tesla can be prepared for that. And they have a lot of cool things coming. I think about, full self-drive, robo-taxi, humanoids. The thing I'm more concerned about is not so much the EV credits, but those regulatory hurdles that I was just talking about for full self-drive. Like, Trump could make that path a lot easier, because eventually this gets to the federal level. And if Trump's, looking at Musk and saying, here's this guy talking, a lot of trash about a lot of good things that I feel like I'm doing, it's not the kind of person you want to make an enemy with. So that's where I'd be even more concerned. Is I think the EV credits, they'll be okay if those go away. I don't know if the regulatory hurdles get more difficult, though, because really robo-taxi is the future here for Tesla. And if Trump makes that path more difficult because, he's feuding with Elon Musk, that's not good for Tesla shareholders. So right now, as a Tesla shareholder, there's a lot of unknowns. I mean, I love the innovation and what Tesla has done, from full self-drive to robotaxi to humanoids eventually, but humanoids are a long ways away. And Tesla still is, at this point in time, a car company. So the EV credits do hurt.
Right. Dennis, could you also give us a sense that from a CEO point of view, if someone were to put himself in Elon Musk's seat, why is he getting so angry with Donald Trump publicly and doing something which is definitely going to hurt his stock and maybe hurt his company also?
I'd go back to an interview 2 years ago where Trump interviewed on CNBC with David Faber. And David Faber at that time, interview with Musk and David Faber. And at that time, Elon Musk was asked, if, you were concerned about what you were saying to hurt, your share price and lose money. And Elon Musk's response was, if I lose money because of what I say, so be it. That's how much Elon Musk is convicted when he gets talking about something and he firmly believes that the big, beautiful bill is not that beautiful, or otherwise he wouldn't keep, coming back to Twitter to say it. He firmly believes that, and he's not going to stop talking about that because he thinks his share price is going to fall because of it. If it falls, I think he's prepared for that. So he doesn't care about losing money, but that should be concerning to shareholders, because the shareholders do care about losing money. So I don't know if the board eventually takes a look and say, hey, Musk, just cool it a little bit. We get that you don't like the big, beautiful bill, but this is hurting our share prices. This is potentially going to give us more regulatory hurdles for FSD. So if me being a Tesla shareholder, I'd be concerned. And if I was on the board, I would want to be talking to Musk about potentially just cooling it a bit, just cool off. Let's not start a war with the president of the United States of America.
Right. And the Tesla stock is the big story in US markets, isn't it, right now? And we're also watching it very closely, Dennis, because Tesla is all set to start retail operations in India very soon. Thanks once again for being with us here on CNBC-TV18 and Global Lens.
Thanks so much for having me.
Let's now shift our focus to trade. There's just a week to go before US President Donald Trump's reciprocal tariffs of 26% hit India. India's top trade negotiator has extended his stay in Washington as talks enter the final phase to seal an interim deal. Sources say the stalemate continues over agriculture and dairy. The Trump administration is keen on maintaining a 10% tariff rate with India, while the Indian government wants tariffs to be brought down to zero across several sectors. The United States also wants to keep steel tariffs on India at 25%, but India wants an exemption after the early harvest deal. India is also pushing hard for a competitive edge for its labor-intensive sectors in the proposed trade pact. Now, U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent has said that the Trump administration is very close to seal the deal with India. Joining us now to discuss the possible outcomes of the trade talks is Mukesh Aghi, President and CEO of the USIndia Strategic Partnership Forum. Thank you for being with us here on Global Lens, Mr. Aghi. How do you see Scott Bessent's statement saying that US is very close to a trade deal with India and trade deals are on next week's agenda?
No, absolutely. I think the discussion in Washington, D.C. is all about closing a big deal, and the big deal would be India, because so far the Trump administration has been able to only close deal with UK, which is not a substantive deal as compared to India. So from that perspective, everybody is keen to ensure, but it's going to be an interim deal. It's not going to be a final deal because some of the bigger issues, such as agriculture, such as dairy, such as GMO, they will come in part two. But part one is let's close the deal, get the business moving forward, and bring in more certainty rather than having an uncertain environment between the two countries.
Right. We've been speaking to sources in the Indian government through the day, Mr. Aghi, and what they indicate, there is still a stalemate as far as India's sensitivities on agriculture and dairy are concerned. We're pushing hard for concessions and greater market access, a competitive edge for India's labor-intensive sectors. From the Indian side, it seems that agriculture and dairy are the red lines, and the US is still pushing for them to be included in the early harvest deal as well. And the indication that we're getting that India may walk away from the deal if there is too much insistence on agriculture and dairy. What do you think is the status of negotiations?
Well, yes, US is asking to open up ag, dairy, GMO, and those are red lines for India itself. You have to understand when you have 60% of the population working on the farm, you have to protect them. From a religious perspective, the dairy which are fed in the US, meats and other kind of food is not acceptable. India, under the law, cannot allow GMO. So I think the government hands are tied. And we are trying to explain to the US government that let's not push hard on that area. Our feeling is that US will focus on getting first interim deal going and then focus on ag, dairy, and others in the latter part of the discussion itself.
Right. So you're saying that we will have an interim deal in goods minus agriculture and dairy. Would you have any idea as to the number of product lines or the kind of product lines which could be covered in the early harvest agreement?
So our estimate shows slightly over 6,000 product lines, which both sides have agreed to move forward. Also, basically, when India has a $40+ billion trade surplus with the US, India will buy more LNG from the US to bring that to the balance itself. So I think it addresses multiple factors what Trump is asking for. Balance the trade between the two countries. By India buying LNG, that's going to bring it down. Open up the market. I think the current agreement opens up the market itself, both for the US and India. At the end of the day, I think the objective here is to take the trade between the two countries from 200 billion to 500 billion. And we strongly believe a reciprocal trade deal, a trade deal which is win-win, will drive trade exports from India into the US and from the US into India itself. So I think what we have to focus is it should not be a win-lose deal, but a win-win deal between the two countries.
Right. What I would also like to ask you that what would be the tariff arrangement? Will it be 0 for 0, or US will impose 10% and India will also impose an average tariff of 10%?
Well, when you say reciprocal, that means if the US is going to put 10%, then India should put 10%. You can't have one country at 0, other country at 10 itself. The whole objective of renegotiating a trade deal was early on, where India's weighted average tariff was in double digit and US was in single digit. And the whole objective is to bring parity here. So I think if US insists on 10%, then India will also insist on 10%. But you have to understand that you are dealing with a economy which is India, $4 trillion with a per capita income of $2,000 versus the economy which is $30 trillion with a per capita income of almost $85,000. So I think you have to bring some semblance of parity between the economy and per capita as compared to both countries itself. I think in order to have a win-win deal, you need to ensure that there's a reciprocity between the two countries.
Right. When it comes to steel tariffs, India has been seeking an exemption But considering that the US has applied these steel tariffs, 25% tariffs on all nations, is there likelihood of any reprieve for India?
Well, it all depends on President Trump. If he basically feels that India is moving the right direction according to his perception, that he may probably say, okay, let's bring it down to either 10 or 26% as per earlier. But you have to understand, India's export on steel is more closer to like few $1 billion. So the impact is not that big. I think what we have to focus is making sure that our pharma goods are zero, our basically handicraft, especially jewelry and gems, which is like almost $9 billion exports, are protected. So those are the areas we should need to focus on. Yes, steel is important. And we are seeing that US is putting major tariff on Canadian, European, and Japanese steel. So it'll be exception if India gets it down to 10%, but let's wait and watch.
Right. What would be your hope from the early harvest agreement? If this agreement has to help companies both in the US and India and drive investment, what is the kind of tariff structure that you are hoping for from the early harvest deal?
Well, we like to see zero tariffs, but I think if the objective on part of the US side is 10%, 10% also kind of when you benchmark with China, the overall objective is increase the exports, objectives to move in supply chain from China into India, because at the end of the day, the US cannot bring in full manufacturing back to the US. Today, we have vacancy of almost 400,000 jobs in manufacturing in the US, which we can't fulfill. So what we are going to see is more advanced manufacturing coming back to the US, but India plays a critical role in the other aspect of manufacturing. It could be semiconductor, which is 15 nanometers and above, could be in components or partnership in defense area. So I think what the whole strategy is, strike a deal with India, then basically work on joint manufacturing in certain areas between the countries which have signed a trade deal. So from that perspective, I think it's important that India and US come to an agreement, sign a trade deal, and move on into looking at securing supply chain for the US companies in partnership with India.
Right. Mr. Aghi, always a pleasure having you here on CNBC TV18. Let's hope we have a trade deal over the next few days. We're taking a short break here on Global Lens, but coming up, Prime Minister Narendra Modi will visit Argentina this week as part of his 5-nation visit. We put the spotlight on India's relationship with the South American nation with Ambassador-Designate Ajaneesh Kumar. Welcome back. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi is set to visit Argentina later this week to boost bilateral ties. His trip is part of a 5-nation tour that will begin tomorrow and last for 8 days. This is to be Prime Minister Modi's longest diplomatic visit in the last 10 years and his second to Argentina. The visit is crucial as India is the 4th largest trading partner of Argentina as of 2025. The bilateral trade between the two countries stood at $5.3 billion in 2024. India has total cumulative investment of about $1.2 billion in Argentina, and Argentina has a total investment of nearly $120 million in India. We're now joined by Ajaneesh Kumar, Indian Ambassador-Designate to Argentina. Ambassador Kumar, thank you very much for joining us. Let me begin by asking you about the big problem that India is facing right now, and that is because of critical minerals, and especially the rare earth magnet crisis that we are facing because of Chinese restrictions. How important will be the conversation between our leaders of India and Argentina on securing a critical mineral supply chain?
So thank you for having me. As you would be knowing, Argentina is one of those countries which has got extensive reserves of critical minerals. And India is already having rather engaged with Argentina. Our engagement started around 2 years back in 2023. We have both Khanij Videsh as well as Kabil, and of course some private sector companies led by Glencore very Greenco here in Argentina. Some of them are prospecting, and there is a huge potential for further collaboration.
When it comes to lithium exploration, do you feel that there will be certain agreements, certain announcements?
Well, the stakeholders from our side, as I said, Kabil, they already have MOUs with the various states. Here they are called provincias, like Catamarca, Salta, Jujuy. They're already in touch with them, and they are trying to prospect. Shortly, they have already been allocated certain tracts of land, in fact, five parcels of land, and they'll be prospecting them. And once they have results coming out from there, I'm sure they'll be looking at further expansion. And I'm happy to inform you that during the last visit of the YPF chief in India in January this year, they signed a memorandum with three of India's majors, that is ONGC Videsh, then you have Oil India, and you have GAIL. And besides energy, they are also looking at prospecting in the area of critical minerals.
Right. That indeed is important. I'll come to that again in just a bit. But Ambassador, I would like to ask you about the broader importance of India-Argentina relations in the current geopolitical scenario. This is going to be Prime Minister Modi's second visit to Argentina. How significant is this, and what will be some of the big achievements we would be looking out for?
So you see, with Argentina, only last year we celebrated 75 years of our diplomatic relations. That speaks volumes about the way we have developed together and have buttressed and strengthened our relationship. Today it is multifaceted. In earlier times, Argentina was known as a country from where we were buying a lot of edible oil, primarily soya oil, and then to some segment also buying sunflower oil. But today, if you look at the basket of trade, yes, the edible oil component is still very high, but then we have expanded the lot, and likewise things coming from India, whether it is two-wheeler, tractors, you have Advanta seeds, you have companies like UPL making fertilizers here. So the basket has broadened, and the scope for our relationship to develop and strengthen. And I'm sure with the meeting between our two leaders, Honorable Prime Minister and His Excellency, the President of Argentina, I'm sure the dialogue between them will be to further strengthen this cooperation.
Right. I would like to ask you about the trade cooperation between the two nations. Are there going to be certain pacts that will be signed during this visit, which will probably bolster the trade between the two nations? And would there be any specific areas where you are seeking more exports or more market access in Argentina?
You see, our two countries have various platforms which are engaged from time to time to address various sectors. So we have the Joint Commission, we have the Foreign Office consultation, we also have the Joint Trade Commission, which met recently, and the next round is going to take place in 2026. Then we have the joint working groups, whether it is in the area of critical minerals or it is in the area of agriculture. In fact, we are going to be having a meeting very shortly, the second meeting on agriculture this month itself in July. So there are these various platforms available for engagement. I think during the visit, the two leaders will only try to give us direction, where to take the relationship forward. And with that kind of a mandate, we officials and diplomats have work to do to further take this relationship to a direction where we can bring much more prosperity to our two peoples.
Right. Ambassador, when we look at Argentina, there are so many Indian automobile companies which have a strong presence in Argentina, and I'm sure they would be looking at the visit very closely. My question would also be on the energy partnership. Now, when it comes to Argentina, they've got the world's second largest shale gas reserves, fourth largest shale oil reserves. Are we going to be exploring a bigger energy partnership in order to diversify our energy imports because of what's been happening in the Strait of Hormuz and in the Middle East? It's very important for us to diversify. So are we going to see some strong steps in that direction?
Well, I'm very happy to inform you that, we are already engaged with Argentina in the area of energy supplies. Our companies, all the premier companies are engaged. And as I said earlier, in January, the YPF chief, which is the main national oil and gas company of the country, he was in India, and they signed a MOU to further look at the possibilities of not only prospecting, but exploration, and then conversion and subsequent transportation to India. And I'm also very happy to add to this that one shipment has already reached India. It was a commercial buy. So there is immense possibility. And as you rightly said, Argentina is sitting over some of the largest reserves of shale oil and gas in the world.
Right. We've run out of time, but thank you so much, Ambassador, for joining us on the program, giving us your view on the larger India-Argentina partnership and why this is important at this present juncture.
Thank you.
All right. Now on Final Cut this evening, Southern Europe is in the grip of a very severe heat wave with temperatures soaring above 40 degrees Celsius. This is one of the hottest Junes on record for this region. Countries like France, Spain, Portugal, Italy and parts of the Balkans have issued heat alerts, closed schools and put emergency services on high alert. Wildfires have also broken out in France, Turkey, Croatia, and all of this is adding to the crisis. We leave you with these pictures. That's all on this edition of Global Lens. Goodbye and thanks for watching.
We drink a lot of water, we wear hats, and we try to stay hydrated.
It is crazy, like we're used to the heat, but there, it's more than we've ever had. And then here, like trying to sleep at night, it's the same problem. Like it's just as hot as it is in Spain.
Stay out the sun. As you can see, got my big rim hat, got my sunblock on my face. I'm bald, so I got to cover my head. So yeah, that's about it.